Today I will be talking about growing patterns, which are also known as building patterns. Key ideas. Growing patterns are sequences of numbers, shapes or objects that are related to each other. For example, here we have 11, 12, 14, 17 and 21. Here we can see that 11 plus 1 equals 12, 12 plus 2 equals 14, 14 plus 3 equals 17, and 17 plus 4 equals 21. Here the pattern rule is to start at 11 and add 1. Each time the amount you add increases by 1. Another growing pattern could include shapes instead of numbers. So here we have square, triangle, square, square, triangle, square, 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 triangle. The only thing that matters is that the pattern grows as it continues. Common misconceptions. Some common misconceptions that students face are: some students may be more inclined to use numbers in patterns rather than using symbols, or vice versa. Some may think that patterns can only be linear patterns. For example, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And they may find it difficult to grasp the concept of growing patterns. For example, 1, 2, 4, 7 and 11. They may also believe that growing patterns can only involve whole numbers. Students may find identifying growing patterns more difficult as they would be used to looking at linear patterns. Learning objectives. For students to be able to successfully identify growing patterns, for students to understand that many different variations of growing patterns, for students to be able to start to identify and describe rules used to create the growing patterns. Ausvals. Level 2. Describe patterns with numbers and identify missing elements. Level 3. Describe, continue and create number patterns resulting from performing addition or subtraction. Level 4. Explore and describe number patterns resulting from performing multiplication. Assumed prior knowledge and skills. Students are able to identify linear patterns, and students need to be able to be confident with the 4 operations. The activity. I would start with a group discussion of what growing patterns are. I would get my students to sit on the floor and give them examples of growing patterns. For example, I would show them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Something as basic as this, as we can show that each time 1 is added. I would also show them 1, 2, 4, 7 and 11, as each time 1 is added, then 2, then 3, etc. I would get all the students to sit in a circle and I would sit in the circle with them. I would use objects such as counters to show growing patterns instead of showing them with numbers. I would explain to the students how one of the growing patterns is formed. For example, I would say that this one increases by 1, then 2, then 3, etc. So that's similar to the 1, 2, 4, 7 and 11. I would also describe the rule for it. I would then show them another growing pattern and ask the class if anyone can do the same for this one. This little activity will lead to a paired activity later. The activity that I have chosen is a partner activity where each student will be given 2 patterns. One made with matchsticks, one with counters. Each person in pairs will need to choose one. The students will be asked in pairs to make the next 3 terms of the patterns. They are then asked to write down a number sequence or rule that describes the pattern. So as we can see, for the counters, 3 will be added each time, and for the matchsticks, each time 1 triangle would be added. They are then asked how many matchsticks or counters will be in the 10th term. So for the counters, we can see that this will be the 10th term. Students may use different strategies to get to the answer. Some may use the rule to find the answer. Some may use the counters and matchsticks to figure this out. The activity includes a reflection and discussion part where students in their pairs can swap and compare their patterns with their partners and discuss their rules for each pattern. This activity can be increased in difficulty by increasing the patterns. So each time you might be able to have, instead of 3 each time, it might be add 3, then add 6 or 9, and the same for the matchsticks. This activity allows for students to learn about growing patterns by using visual and hands-on learning styles. By working in pairs, students will be able to learn from their peers as well as their teachers.